Today's show is sponsored by Action 24/7, Tennessee's only sportsbook by Tennesseans for Tennesseans. And if you want action, you got to get in on the action with Action 24/7 because it's March. It's almost March Madness, but there's one more week until the regular college basketball season ends. So let's celebrate with a parlay promo. Lay $50 on a plus 500 college hoops parlay, and they will toss you a $15 free bet if it doesn't hit. And as always, if you use code DADS100, my friends at Action 24/7 will give you a 50% boost on your first deposit up to $800. That's right, $400 extra dollars when you use code DADS100 and deposit $800 in your account. So check them out at action247.com. Today's show is also sponsored by Orca Coolers. And you know what season it is right now? It's dad season. And it is dad season year round, because if you use code DADSEASON, you'll get 20% off your whole order at Orca Coolers. That is the collegiate coolers they have right now, the tumblers, all the other great coolers they have, all the other awesome tumblers they have. They have a whiskey barrel tumbler. They come out with seasonal tumblers. You never know what they're going to have. Lots of cool stuff over at orcacoolers.com. Be the envy of dads everywhere with their roto-molded coolers and awesome products. So go ahead and use code DADSEASON. You'll save 20%. Tell them we sent you. Last but not least, today's show is sponsored by DistilleryProducts.com. If you are a store, a distillery, a bourbon group, or maybe you're a podcast like us, go ahead and go to DistilleryProducts.com. They have wholesale pricing, some of the best in the whole entire biz, and you can get laser etched glassware at those wholesale prices. They also have awesome swag. They've partnered with mirrors, so there's some cool tumblers and things that you could put your logo on. Go see the crew, see Carson, see Janie, Vicky, the whole family over at distilleryproducts.com. Zeke, you got anything for me tonight?
Did we talk about piss stops?
No, we didn't.
No, it's a very simple point I have. I wrote this down forever ago.
Okay. With what you just asked me that you want to talk about, I'm very nervous about what your next statement is, but go ahead and complete it.
So I think there's two types of people in the world. You tell me how you feel. Like hypothetically, you have to stop at a piss stop on, driving down the road, interstate, usually whatever.
A rest area.
Do you feel, no, this is like a convenience store, but you're clearly just there to pee. But do you feel obligated to buy something because you use their facilities, or do you just lower your head, not make eye contact with the cashier and roll out?
I mean, I tend to try to buy something.
I mean, what percent would you say that is?
Sometimes I really don't want something. I'd say I'm a good 95% of the time if I'm going in to use the facility.
Fair enough. I just feel like it's one of those things like people should do, and it's $3 or $2 or whatever to buy a Powerade or something to snack on. Where would you have been if the stop wasn't there, the restroom wasn't there? Think about if the business doesn't make it. What are you doing then?
I feel like somebody has to clean that bathroom up at some point, so I should contribute to the salary to help the cause.
Salarying or souring?
Salary. I would equate it to putting the cart back in the cart area when you're leaving the store.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just good etiquette, but I always wonder how do people really follow it? Because I feel like if you slowly observe people, you just see folks in and out with nothing in their hands. Well, what were they doing in the store if they have nothing in their hands?
Maybe they bought gas when they were outside and they used the card, and then they went into the store to go to the restroom, and then they have nothing when they're leaving, but they still bought gas. Our guest has something he wants. We haven't even introduced him yet, but go ahead and jump in.
Being from Georgia, you strike me as somebody that would just piss on the side of the road.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Edwards. With me, as always, is Zeke Baker, and together we make the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, thank you for making us part of your day. And he already made himself known in a way that I really appreciate already. This is a long time coming. We love what he has been putting out at this distillery. We have a lot to talk to him about, and it is a big moment because they just released their Green River Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Their distillery goes back a long time. He is an 8th generation distiller. The DSP on this distillery is 10 for Kentucky, if you want to know how far this distillery goes back. And that is Mr. Jacob Call, the master distiller for Green River. Welcome to Dad's Drinking Bourbon.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here. Glad to finally make it on your show.
We are so excited to have you on. I was telling you before we got started, I feel like we've just been teased, and, Blue Note and Wheel Horse and Bradshaw and whomever else was using your juice and not necessarily calling out that it was your juice. So many people have been sourcing from Green River, but it's awesome to finally have your own stuff out. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Started distilling in 2016, and this is a little over 5 years old, and we're super excited about it.
I love how you gave everybody else, you're like, you can have this 3 to 4 year stuff, but our 5 year stuff, that's waiting for us.
We had to pay a few bills before we could get the Green River brand launched out there.
Let's start from the beginning and talk a little bit about yourself and your story, and then we'll talk about the story of Green River, all that good stuff. But you are an 8th generation distiller that started in banking. So how did you go away from the family business for a little bit and come back to it? Tell me a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So my family dates back to 1791. Bourbon County, Kentucky. The first guy was Samuel Call, and it's really kind of a funny story. I always knew I was 7th generation, but I never could really connect all the dots. So during COVID, I hired a genealogist, and she did some research, and she said, "You're not going to believe this. I found a bunch of records." So he had 10 kids, and of course they were all fighting over his assets and his estate. So there's a lawsuit, and had his property listing, and he had a 75-gallon still, 120-gallon still, a dozen fermenters. That effectively makes me one of the oldest distilling families in Kentucky, dating back that long. So that was pretty cool find.
I think the most amazing thing out of that, not just the fact that you are in one of the oldest families in Kentucky, but also the fact that he had 12 fermenters back then.
It wasn't just a hobby.
Yeah. Like I hear 12 fermenters and I'm like, at that point, he's really putting out some juice.
Yeah, I was really surprised at it. And then, fast forward to more modern times. My grandfather, he worked at Jim Beam. Family friends with Booker. And then my dad worked at Jim Beam, and Booker was kind of his protege in the business. And we moved to Florida in the 90s, and my dad became a master distiller at Florida Distillers, and he created all the Cruzan rum products. And I went to work for him. So I had all the really challenging jobs when I was a kid, worked in bottling line and clean fermenters, and we had a big cattle ranch down there. Used to take care of all the cows. We feed the byproduct to our stillage. And then I went to Murray State right out of high school. Went up to Murray State back in Kentucky and became a banker for a while. And
not just a banker. You reached C-suite. That's not like
Yeah, Republic Bank, community bank, but still. And then, whiskey and rum and alcohol and bourbon is just a lot cooler than banking. So I went to work for my dad down at Florida Distillers, and I had a couple different distilleries that we ran down there. And he created all the Cruzan rum products. And when that distillery was sold, he kind of semi-retired, and he handles Pilar rum now. He's their master blender for Pilar rum, does all their stuff. And I knew the guy that had bought the old Medley distillery here in Owensboro, Kentucky, and came up and took a look at it. The rest is history, as they say. It was in bad shape, was vacant for about 25 years. So we spent about $30 million rebuilding it. Started distilling in 2016, and we made 18,000 barrels that first year. Expanded a year later to 70,000, and then in 2019 we did our last expansion, which took us to over 90,000 barrels, and we made 94,000 barrels this past year, and that makes us the 4th largest independent bourbon distillery in the United States.
That is amazing. But before we talk about that, you definitely got Zeke's eyes perking up. But I want to go back to your dad. So Can you give him a message for us because I really like Papa's Pilar. I don't know what he has against higher proof rum. Do you have any insight here? Because they had a couple cast strengths that went out in Nashville that were really, really, really good. Whenever we asked about it to the rep, he just said, oh yeah, Mr. Call does not like to do a high proof rum.
I don't know. He's more of a, a sipper kind of guy. He's got some high proof stuff. His latest one is Legacy, which is aged in some of our rye barrels.
Funny enough, I got it right here.
Yeah, that's one of my faves that he does.
That was really damn good.
That was a super good one. But let's get back to your distillery, because obviously you all came out pumping stuff out from the beginning. I think the other thing that you were doing that people didn't even realize is y'all were buying up a lot of whiskey from some other distilleries too. I just remember there were a whole bunch of different brands, non-distilling producers that were getting all their whiskey from OZ Tyler at the time, and you would see they would come with their pick samples, and they would always say OZ Tyler on them, and we're like, oh, you're getting that stuff from them? Oh yeah, they have a lot of barrels, but don't tell anyone.
Yeah, we've got a lot of barrels. We've got, I don't know, 6 figures worth of barrels in storage of our own. So yeah, we got a lot of barrels laying around.
All of a sudden, I feel like this year y'all were sleeping. You had the name change, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, yeah, we're up. And P.S., we have a lot of stuff we're ready to drop on you. How tough was it to know that this moment was going to happen and that you were sitting on all that?
Well, it was exciting. We super excited just to have the ability to get out there and showcase what we can do. We always had our eye on the Green River trademark. The distillery itself, dates back to 1885, and that was the original name, was the Green River Distillery. We were fortunate enough that Rob McCulloch, who's the great-great-grandson of J.W. McCulloch that founded the distillery and the brand, we worked out a deal with him and bought his trademark. And he's a tough negotiator because it took us several years to get that back. So we always kind of had our eye on that Green River name. And, I really can't think of another brand, pre-prohibition brand like that has been brought back to its original home. I think that's pretty rare, actually. Was
that change to Green River? I mean, I think a lot of people thought, just being honest here, it was the rapid aging, the Terra. A lot of people thought the name change was kind of as a rebrand to put that stuff behind you. But this was something y'all wanted from the beginning. You wanted that brand name from day one.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to Rob for years and years and years. And really, the name OZ Tyler, he was the founder of the company, which was based in Charleston, South Carolina. And he had passed away a couple years before we bought the distillery. So the CEO at the time and the ownership at the time, that's the name they picked. So as the master distiller, we don't get involved in all the marketing decisions sometimes. So we got to roll with the punches sometimes. Did you all get the bourbon? Have you tried it?
So I have it right here. And unfortunately, because I normally, divvy it up and give Zeke some, and because of having to go home, I did not get to give him some. But we're being honest. The good thing is we've drank enough Green River between everything we've done that he kind of has a good idea.
Yeah, I've got one of the Blue Note blends we did. I held off on killing the bottle, but we were fortunate enough a while back to go taste through like 20 barrels, blend those kind of as we saw fit and agreed with the distro. It was a fun time. And like in retrospect, it's kind of as daunting as that sounds to do, here's 20 barrels. What do you think we should do? And it's just us and distro and the reps and the Blue Note people are there, but they're not buying it. They're selling it. But it was actually pretty smooth and easy. I mean, I think we wrapped maybe 3.5 hours with a single barrel and 3 different blends of various barrel sizes.
We did a 2, 4, and 6 and a single barrel. And I swear, Zeke, I think we were done in 2 hours.
I mean, it wasn't long and everyone agreed. That it's funny.
That's rare.
Yeah, I mean, you get more than one palate in the room. No, not really feeling that vibe. Both John and I and Tyler, the Ajax rep, obviously the Blue Note people were there and they tasted stuff and they were like, we ain't going to tell you you're wrong. We would drink this all day too. So that was a really just a fun experience. Like I say, to walk into that many barrels and to find a way to utilize that many of them. Like, I feel good about this too. Like, anybody asked me, I drink this all day. I didn't blend it just for shits and giggles. I mean, this is something I would put down 7 days a week.
And I will tell you, Jacob, what I really love about that pick is I now have 5 bottles of Green River that have not been proofed down, not been touched, and they're straight from the barrel, and they're all a little higher proof, so I don't need a whole lot of it, and I could just have a pour here and there. So I am lucky enough to say that we've tasted Green River straight from the barrel, and it's great stuff. Your all's mash bill, not to steal the thunder from you, but I do kind of want to talk to you about it. It's 70% Kentucky grown corn. It's 21% winter rye. It's 9% malted 2 and 6 row barley. How did you pick that mash bill? Obviously, you've done a lot of distilling in your life. Did you have an idea of where you wanted to go and you tried a couple different things, or did you know this is right where you wanted to go from the start?
Well, I kind of like the spicier rye, the spice that you get from the rye. I've always been kind of a fan of the higher rye, but not too high. So I wanted something kind of in the middle. One of the first mash bills we did was 78-13-9, which is kind of a heritage, traditional Jim Beam, Evan Williams type of mash bill. But, I wanted something with a little bit more punch to it. And I think that we delivered that. We've run probably 20 different mash bills at our distillery. That's part of, we were in the contract business for a long time. So, we're not like some of the distilleries that just make the same thing every day. So we could experiment around a little bit. Yeah, really happy with how it turned out.
Is that some free R&D for you, having to do all that other stuff?
Yeah, it turned out that way for sure. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Are there other ones you would think about doing in addition to this, or is this kind of where you want to stay?
We do make a lot of rye whiskey. So we've got a 95.5 rye. Pretty excited about that one. The 13% I like. So, we've got a handful. We got a weeded that we do. So, yeah, we've got a lot of stuff kind of on the back burner.
First thing that popped in my head was, do you have a weeded? I think inevitably that's where a lot of people are going right now. I can't say for almost anyone's younger wheated mash that nothing comes to mind that I can think of where I was like, man, this is what you should bet the farm on. Even the folks that are in Frankfurt and known for wheated, I think they're putting it out too young now. And that's probably the biggest issue, but there's still interest in it for sure.
And as far as Green River goes, I would say that, this 90 proof version is our flagship, right? We had to come out with a flagship and get it out in the market, got to lead with something. And it's got a good price point on it. Here in Kentucky's $34.99 for a 5-year-old. And then, we'll come with a bottled and bond probably next year. We'll come with a rye whiskey after that. So we got a lot of things in the works.
No, I think that's a solid entry point and something John and I talk about too much. So I won't beat a dead horse for anyone that listens to us regularly. But, when you come in, it can't be high priced and it doesn't, in our opinion, need to be high proofed. Yes, the 1 or 2 percenters get into those now, and that's what they want and they want to see. But your daily drinkers and what would ideally be a regular customer, I don't think they're in that niche. Or if they are, I don't know how they work in the mornings.
That's the tough thing, right? Is that you want to find something that, and I tell people this all the time, that $30 to $40 is such an emerging category. I think a lot of times, you have those bottled and bonds that people expect to be 25 and under. And I feel like a lot of people are pricing their whiskey higher than it should be. But there's this growing number of distilleries that realize, hey, if our MSRP is 30 to 40, it's like people were saying the $50 to $70. It was that everyday rare, high-end, everyday stuff. And then that might be good for millennials, but us dads, we got bills to pay. We have soccer. We have all this other stuff going on. That 50 to 70 is not a good range for us to drink something on the regular. We appreciate y'all putting something out that is more affordable, more approachable. Yes, you talk about this with a little bit of that rye spice, which absolutely 100% is there. But I would say that this is well-rounded and is very pleasing to the masses, right? Like I think there's an aspect to it where you can get a little bit of spiciness, but it's not too much. It's just enough to tingle your tongue, but you do get I think the funny thing is some of the taste on it for me, I know you put your tasting notes with it, but definitely cinnamon, a little bit of greenness to it. Like I would say a little earthy tones in there as well. Lot of spice, a lot of caramel, vanilla, the stuff you would want in a drinker. And I think the mouthfeel is the best part, that you're getting that 30 to 40 drinker, but you're not feeling like it's too thin, and that you're not getting, I like to have a little bit of substance in my pour. I don't want it to be too thin. And I think it's not going to be one of those things where you sit there and drink and go, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever drank in my life. And I know you wouldn't expect it to be, but it's also, you sit there and go, damn, this is a solid pour.
Yeah, part of our thoughts with that, with going with the 90 proof, J.W. McCulloch, he was big into branding and advertising, and this was actually the official whiskey of the Marine Corps Hospital. So part of his slogan was he wanted to sell it far and wide. So we're kind of the same boat on that. We want it to be approachable, affordable, great bottle. I think people, they may buy it just for the bottle the first time, but my hope is they buy it for the liquid that's inside the second time.
For sure. That's definitely where you want to be. Is a similar thing we've talked about. It's like, if you market it right and do it right, somebody's probably going to pick it up at least one time. But it's what do you do to ensure the contents are going to justify the price and the bottle and get the repeat business? Because if you're in this for a one and done game, I don't think that's the play to make.
Yeah, we're too big. Just the distillery's too big. The brand is too historic to do anything like that. So this is we don't want it to be one that people just set on their shelf and stare at. We want it to be drunk. So
obviously have some good variants in mash bills. How much are you tinkering around with various cooperages?
We buy primarily from Independent Stave. They're our main supplier, but we spread it around a little bit. We buy some from Speyside, some from West Virginia barrel cooperage, but I would say our majority of our barrels come from Independent Stave. We do a number 4 char on all of our barrels. We've done some of their experimental barrels on kind of limited quantities, and I think we'll probably save those for our single barrel picks later down the road when we get to that with Green River. Give folks a little bit of variety when they're picking through.
And are you guys doing, at least almost from tasting a good bit of the stuff, what I would assume is somewhat of a longer seasoning process on those staves? I get good oak, but I don't get any like char, salty brininess, which all we've been able to associate that with is staves that haven't been seasoned as long. So the char comes out more than the natural flavors, tannins, and whatnot.
Yeah, we do a 6 to 8 month seasoning on the staves. And, we don't do any toasting, just a regular, we call it the classic whiskey barrel. And that's kind of what we wanted with this product. Is I wanted to make a very traditional, classic bourbon, not to take anything away from some of the other, brands and products out there, but you've got stuff being finished with everything under the sun. And I thought, hell, it might be kind of refreshing just to have a good old solid Kentucky bourbon for a change. So what's old is new again, maybe.
It's going to get there. I had a similar conversation over the weekend with some folks, and it's like, all right, sure, the finished stuff's popping right now. People are buying it. It's a wave. How long will the wave go? And to some degree, will it probably always be there? Possibly, but at the end of the day, it's still more of a niche product. And most people are probably going to circle back to the core fundamentals of, all right, well, that was fun. It's great as a cordial. I can share it with the friends that don't love bourbon. But when I'm just sitting here by myself watching TV on a Tuesday, I don't need all that shit. I just want straight bourbon whiskey.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there's a place for that, to try and experiment. And experimentation's always good, keeps everybody on their toes, but not for Green River. That's not what we wanted to do with this historic brand.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about it. And you talk about experimentation. Is it safe to say that rapid aging is probably not in the experimentation plans moving forward, or is that something y'all would revisit again? Or
definitely not for Green River and some of our more historic brands. That's just tradition all the way. I will say we use it. It does work on vodka. We have it down in Charleston. We use it for some vodka products. Game Day vodka comes to mind. What it does work pretty good with is the stave finish stuff. So, if somebody wants to finish a product in sherry barrels, or sherry staves, you don't have to go out and buy 100 sherry barrels and source them from, around the world and keep up with them. You can take some staves and use that process. And it works pretty well for that.
Is it one of those things, because we've had some people on that talked about rapid aging in a whole sorts of ways. And I understand some of the stuff is proprietary, so you don't necessarily have to feel like you can answer. You could say pass. Is it something where you chop the staves up really small and put them in there? Or are you putting full staves in?
They're full staves. Yeah.
Okay. And then is it really just putting it in the barrel with them, or is it putting it in a vat? How?
We've got a patent machine that works off ultrasonic energy.
It is one of those things where people say that regular whiskey, it's tougher, but anything that you're doing with finishing or some of that other stuff, I mean, that's kind of the common answer we've got from anybody that we talk to that tries to do it. How many brands are you actually over? Because I know there's something like you've created 80 brands, or there was some article I was reading that's just the total number of brands that you've had your hand in is crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you, to be honest with you. We do a lot of private label stuff for big liquor store chains, Total Wine, ABC Liquor, Bevmo. So there's a lot of brands that are in those stores. And then our private brand stuff, of course, Bradshaw and Wheel Horse and Duke, the Duke brand. I'd have to sit with a calculator, probably figure it out.
Going forward, I guess, do you have a percent in mind or kind of a goal as far as where you want to be, as far as the balance between what you retain for yourself versus what you source out, keep the lights on, however you want to look at it? It's kind of a two-part thing, because obviously I'm sure you're aware, sourcing is more and more apparent by the day, and there's plenty of folks that are doing well in it. I think if John and I were hypothetically ever going to open a place, we would bank on some percent being sourced. So I just wonder, your side of the coin of that being from the brand's kind of mind, home, feel thing.
So right now we're about 50-50. And I think as a brand like Green River grows, that number will move closer towards keeping more for ourselves. There will always be a balance, I think, of, as you said, paying the bills. And so it's a balancing act. But I think we'll eventually, move one day. Might take 20 years. It took Heaven Hill a long time to get Evan Williams to where it's at. So we're sort of that same business model, I would say.
Well, I would think, too, kind of like John alluded to earlier, especially if you get the customers that come in that, well, I like what you do, but I want to put my own spin on it, or I want to tweak it, or I want this ratio of a mash bill. All right, well, now I get paid to test out something that I might have done on my own to begin with. But I mean, if you're going to pay me to do it,
yeah.
Hey, let me see what else works around here.
Yeah, the problem sometimes with that's the minimums. We're so big. A 1 day run for us is 300 barrels. That's a big experiment, for somebody.
So that's something probably that all your time down in Florida and all the distilling you had, I mean, the Medley distillery, when you took it over, was it that size, or did you bring in all new equipment to allow yourself to put in 300 barrels a day?
No, it was non-functional when we got there. They had 8 fermenters. I mean, it was in bad shape. The doubler was there. A couple of the cookers were there, but no, I talked to Charles Medley, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and he had told me that the most they had ever done was 50,000 barrels, and we did 94,000. So we've expanded it quite a bit. We run 24/7, 50 weeks a year.
And I'm sure everything is pretty automated. At this point, you got computers driving a whole lot of that.
Yeah. We've got a lot of automation. We've got some great operators that help us, that work for us, grain operators, distillery operators. But it's come a long way. If you guys are ever nearby, be sure to come and take a tour. See how far we've come, that's for sure.
That we will be coming to visit. I mean, things are just kind of tough in the beginning of the year and getting everything going, but we will be up sometime this year. We're definitely going to let you know. What has been your favorite thing to distill? Because you've distilled a whole lot of different stuff. What's been your favorite?
Let me tell you my least favorite. So my least favorite is probably malt whiskey. We made some single malt one time, and that stuff is tricky. Foamy, stinks up the whole damn distillery when you distill it. So that was probably my least favorite. Rye whiskey is fun. We had a lot of people don't like messing with rye. It gets sticky and foams real bad, but we didn't have any problems with it. I was really, at the end of the day, it's all pretty similar to distill. So, it's the recipe, and we use different yeast strains for different products too. So our bourbon, we blend a couple proprietary yeast strains on the bourbon. And then the rye, we have a special strain we use for our rye. So it's all fun.
I was going to ask anything unique to, the grains that go into the mash as well. Some folks will tell you, we buy the same thing that the three folks down the street buy, and some will get in depth like, no, we hunt this down and do this and that, and this is what we want to our specificities.
We do buy all Kentucky corn from about a 30-mile radius from the distillery. We're pretty fortunate. Some of the best corn in Kentucky is in Western Kentucky near our distillery. And we've got probably a dozen farmers that we contract direct from. But our grain goes through a pretty rigorous test before we unload it. We do organoleptic on it, smell it. We check for alpha toxins, bushel weight, moisture, foreign material. So we're pretty picky about it, the grain for sure. You can take a musty corn and it will smell all the way through the process, all the way through aging. So if you ever get like a really musty bourbon, it's probably bad corn.
I got the sense from the descriptors between the single malt whiskey and then the rye that the sticky and the bubbles were kind of manageable, but it was the smell end of the day. Like, no, I'm not dealing with that shit again.
Yeah, we had to really clean once we got done with the malt. Yeah.
It's malt too. The funny thing is, anybody who tries to put a malt in one of those infinity bottles, you hear everybody like, oh yeah, I had an infinity bottle. It was going so well that I put some malt whiskey in there and it all went to shit. And it's like, that's exactly, malt just takes over.
It does. It's strong, very strong.
We know what your least favorite is now. How are you feeling? So I guess the greatest place to go is this has now been out for a couple weeks. People are going out, trying it. You're getting the reception on it. People like us that aren't experts but share their opinion are starting to talk about it. How are you feeling about the reception on the Green River bourbon that is finally out?
Yeah, it's been great. First day, I think I signed 1,000 bottles in our gift shop. What really makes me proud is for the city of Owensboro. We put right on the label, the pride of Owensboro. Owensboro was a mecca for bourbon distilling back before Prohibition. There were 23 distilleries in Davis County. And I read an article the other day that the combined tax revenue of tobacco and whiskey for Davis County was more than double any other county in the United States. So double Louisville, double Nelson County, Davis County is where it was at. And, after Prohibition, it was just the Medley hung on for as long as they could. So just really proud for Owensboro and all of our employees to get to bring a brand like this back and have something that they can be proud of.
Oh, it's solid. So it was seemingly Bardstown before Bardstown, I guess.
Yeah, it really was.
As far as we talked about, the rye and the wheat stuff and anything else down the road. Is there a set timeline for those as far as like we expect to put out a rye in, this quarter of this year, or the wheat, or, other things?
Yeah, I don't have any exact dates yet. Sales would probably kill me if I popped off with something, but I'd say next year sometime on the rye.
Yeah, it's the stuff like that gets you in the most trouble. Nothing that the NDA affects, but no, if I throw myself too under the bus, they're going to be in my ear tomorrow.
They're going to have phone calls tomorrow. When's the rye coming?
We're always good saying like ish, right? Like next, it's like, oh yeah, next year sometime. All right, that's good for us. We don't want to get you in trouble. Well, I know that we have kept you up late. I know that you need to get to the distillery early tomorrow. This has just been awesome to have you on and talk Green River. Anything in closing that you think we should know about bringing back Green River that we missed?
I think for me, personally, it was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to rebuild a historic distillery that pretty much every other distillery at the time was expanding and passed on. So to get to bring that place back to life, bring a brand back to life, bring a whole city, the fourth largest city in Kentucky, back into bourbon, that's pretty cool. I think pretty proud of that.
So something I literally just thought of, and I don't know how or why we both missed it, but obviously it's a family business. Your dad's still doing it. Well, this is a dad show. How often is he in your ear telling you what in the hell you should and shouldn't be doing, and you having to argue with him?
I talked to him several times a week. He was instrumental at the very, the beginning. He was there to make sure I didn't screw anything up, I think, more than anything. But he had to go home. I mentioned the first mash bill we ran was 78-13-9 because that's what he was familiar with at Jim Beam. And then when he went back to Florida, I changed it to 70-21-9 because that's what I like.
Well, thank you so much for staying up late with us. We can't wait. I mean, we'll do a follow-up. We'll get up there and actually get up in person with you and do something better. Maybe
we'll try some stuff out of the barrel. Be fun.
Let's do it. And thank you so much. You can find it's Green River Distilling Company on all the socials. Search for them. You should be able to find them. Jacob is not on the socials. I did not see. I think he's too busy distilling, and I can't imagine him plugging away on Instagram, just taking selfies in the distillery. So
no.
There was a solid shrug there for anyone that obviously can't see, but it was more spoken than the no.
Yes.
My kids would have to be my handler on that, I guess. It's more their speed.
We'll go find you there at the distillery. You can find us on Facebook at Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Twitter at Bourbon Dads, Instagram at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Please leave us an open and honest review like we leave open and honest reviews about the whiskey we drink. Zeke, where else can the folks find us?
Good old Nashville, Tennessee.
Jacob, thank you again. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Ciao.